So as Bitcoiners, a lot of this stuff becomes painfully obvious. Do you think that there's going to be some like mass awakening, like the 100 monkey theory? Like there's just going to be an inflection point in the next couple of years where like the whole world wakes up to this? Because at times I think that's going to happen, and other times I get a little down and out, like, oh my God, people are never going to figure it out.
I'm a hyper Bitcoinization bull. I get that people can be skeptical about the time frames of, and people always ask, like, is this something you envision happening in our lifetime? Personally, I love Michael Saylor. I don't envision a world where we're ever talking about a $20 million Bitcoin. And I think that's just such an edge case where if we were talking about Bitcoin as being worth 20 million of anything, that thing would be worthless. So if that's 2045, then I think that's how much time we're working with. For me, it's kind of like the idea that at this point, very few people actually know how cars work, and we all drive them. Not everybody, for this thing to happen, is going to have to understand how Bitcoin works. I do think that ideas can spread. You mentioned the 100 monkeys theory. Is this study that was conducted on the island of Kashima in Japan in the 50s, where they were teaching monkeys to wash sweet potatoes because they taste better when they're clean, and just trying to determine whether or not the monkeys could teach each other to wash the potatoes. And the story goes, after a certain number of monkeys learned the skill, monkeys on other parts of the island that had nothing to do with the test started exhibiting the behavior. They had no way to explain it. But I think there's a lot about consciousness that we don't understand. I certainly think that it's possible that Bitcoin does achieve a critical mass where the ordinary person is not, most people, general financial literacy, we're never going to expect it to get to a place where this is going to be normal, but where it's the idea of it makes sense for people enough that they're comfortable and would prefer to just use the money that doesn't melt. Like I think that's a pretty reasonable idea that we can diffuse in sooner than people think.
Seems like that 100th monkey effect would be even more pronounced in a world where we can connect over long distances with language and telecommunications. Once you see some two-legged monkeys adopting a strategy that works for you, right? A Bitcoin-based strategy that would just spread very quickly. Yeah. I was actually shocked it took so long. We're now seeing this wave of Bitcoin treasury companies basically emulating the MicroStrategy, which is now Strategy Playbook. I'm surprised it took 5 years. Yeah, I thought after the one bull run we would see this. Basically. Me too. But it's taken longer. But now it's gradually, then suddenly. Now it's happening all at once.
Yeah, the corporate adoption has taken a lot longer than I expected, but the nation state pivot has been faster than I expected.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
I think it's going to happen too, nation states. And I think if Harvard still exists in 20 years, there will be like case studies. A lot of executives are going to have to answer for why they didn't use that time in the early 2020s to at least evaluate the merit of Saylor's ideas. Mm-hmm. And when people understand what he's done, there will be, this is another thing that like, that's not going to take another 20 years because Strategy will be the most valuable company in the world at some point. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, a lot of very smart people are going to have to understand why.
Is it a humility thing? Is that why we've seen so much resistance to this? Why haven't more Fortune 1000 CEOs adopted this strategy?
I would love to know the answer to that question because, everyone's looking for an edge, and
this is the easiest edge ever.
And
just switch your savings account.
Yeah, a lot of these companies are also like really experiencing, the non-Mag 7 companies in the Fortune 1000 are in a tough time, right? Mm-hmm. Like it doesn't matter what industry, people's consumer habits have really changed. It would be a tough time to be a C-suiter. Mm-hmm. So, and then you have this one outlier stock that has almost lapped everybody else since he decided doing this one thing that most people wanted to call stupid. It's crazy to me that, and like, so I went to the strategy conference in Orlando in May, and Saylor was telling the story about how the Microsoft executive team gave him 3 minutes
Did you
Dude,
watch that 3-minute presentation?
He played it for the
It was
room.
so good. He packed so many Saylor-esque little nuggets into this 3-minute, and he kept like a nice, smooth
3 minutes?
3 minutes.
3 minutes.
I mean,
What's the
imagine
point of
anything
that?
like, it's like a speed date. Like, sell me this pen.
That seems like purposefully disrespectful. It's like 3 minutes at a shareholder meeting. What else were they doing?
I think about all their executives, to your point. And what are those people going to say when they get walked out at some point?
Well, I think the big corporations are have board members that are unaware of the existential crisis that they have, and so a lot of these treasury companies are essentially like zombie or dead companies that are throwing in a Hail Mary. So with all the big dogs, it's gonna be interesting to see who goes first. I think that Zuckerberg might be the one who could get away with making that move, but they're unaware of the existential crisis that they have. They're all big tech monopolies, or generally speaking. So they have these monopolies on the market. So they don't have the same issue that MicroStrategy had, where he knew he was done.
Yeah. I mean, but this is the same thing I think that happens to individual people often who make the same choice. And it's probably true to say that those executives that aren't have this same fundamental misunderstanding of this notion that 2% inflation is a natural occurring phenomenon.
Yeah, our economic conditioning is really starting to work against us. That people take this for granted, and then you miss it's the lowest effort asymmetric advantage there's ever been for a Fortune 1000 company. What did Saylor do? He switches his savings account, and you more than 100x your market cap in 5 years.
Well, that's a combination of switching the savings account and leveraging this Keynesian economic system.
Well, then added to it, basically. But the
Supercharger.
switch was really all you had to do at the beginning. You don't have to go the full tilt and leverage everything.
Triple
and buy
maxi.
more. Yeah, like in these conditions, you literally could just switch your cash holdings into Bitcoin.
Yeah, just use the money that isn't melting.
Yeah, and you can choose that's a spectrum, right? There's the very basic strategy, and you can go with the advanced strategy. But right now, all you'd have to do is the basic. So, for instance, had Microsoft done this, or let's pick Apple. Apple had, I don't know, 5 years ago, $100 billion of cash or something on the balance sheet. If they put all that in Bitcoin 5 years ago, that's over $1 trillion now. It's just cash, and you did nothing. You just switched your no debt, nothing. You just switched your savings account.
Yeah.
So the fact that hasn't caught on, more people, it's like, you're telling me I've got to do basically nothing, just switch an account, and then I get a 100x upside on my cash position.
It's this idea of entropy, and
I'm sorry, 10 plus X upside.
The misconception that it's, Bitcoin is money, and people are thinking about it as like, speculative asset. And this is why I think they wouldn't make that connection.
Yeah.
You're actually just trading one form of money for another.
That's right. Well, you're trading a pseudo money for real money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, and I wonder what, and I'm invested in this because I'm in this business, but it's how long is it going to take for a company to then realize we should be doing this in everything that we do? Why are our employees still working for this paper money? Why are we not taking what we know and using that as a tool to outcompete by offering staff something that is better for them? And this is, I think, and I absolutely think this is where we are headed, where it's not going to take them. Somebody is going to continue. This will continue to get innovated, and businesses will have to survive by. The fiat game gets only harder, and so the relentless search for edge, and AI is going to accelerate this problem. Where how can you be relevant and grow market share and all of these things that these big pubcos need to do? Bitcoin can do a lot more than just preserve the capital on your balance sheet and attract more shareholders.
Yeah.
It could rewire your corporate culture. It could change the way your employees think about making low time preference decisions for the company.
Interesting.
There are cultural things that adopting a Bitcoin mindset could do that could actually birth the future of successful companies. And I think that the companies that start to really think this way and disregard really fiat traps will be the ones that emerge in that world of tomorrow and thrive.
Why is that? Is that because as you become more, I don't know, bolstered up, I guess, by your balance sheet, then you don't have to be like scouring for ideas and ways to like keep that P&L going? Like, is it your fiscal responsibility? Like, hey, I don't need to just continue to create all these widgets to just keep the whole thing alive. Like, I can actually like calm down here. I got this Bitcoin on the balance sheet. We could figure out what's like a real problem to solve and go after that on our own time frame. And
it's like this problem we were talking about with politicians, but just imagine that was your business. Yeah. And if you could have an executive team that all understood the power of this tool and, you know, were themselves being compensated in that tool. Like I heard at the conference that there's like 20 Bitcoiners that work at Strategy. They've got like 1,500 employees, and that there's employees that don't participate in the share purchase program because they are concerned about what the perceived risk of the Bitcoin strategy. So even there, it's like, imagine that one thing flip where now most of the people at the company understand why the company is doing that. Like, they're going to be attracting those people. Those people will never leave. They'll be buying the company's shares like crazy because they'll actually understand what they have. You know, so if you just condense that down to your leadership team, imagine if you had a small group of people who were really smart. You could get them in a room and say, we need a vision for what this company is going to do for the next 10 years. We've protected our capital already. We know we've done that part. Like, now how do we take this thing and do something that hasn't been done yet? Like, it is actually a secret sauce. Like, I still think it's cool to see what's going on with corporate treasury because it's in its infancy, and it's like, oh, it's like a kid who's now learned to walk, and it's like, look, I'm walking. Like, this is great. But like, we're talking about a financial tool with a limitless potential number of applications, and we're barely scratching the surface because most people still don't understand its money.
I don't think I've ever heard anyone phrase it like that. It's the idea of educating and or compensating your employees in Bitcoin, or putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet, employing them, compensating them with stock, that you're actually not just using Bitcoin to optimize the balance sheet, preserve purchasing power, grow purchasing power over time, but you're also using it to lower the time preference of your stakeholders, right? Your employees, your executives, maybe even your shareholders. Like, that's an interesting idea. I wonder how that's difficult to quantify, I think. Mm-hmm. But, you know, if you consider that, like, if you're playing a game of chess, the player that can out anticipate the other player or see more moves into the future, like the one that has the lower cognitive time preference, if you will, is the one that's going to win. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if there actually would be a competitive advantage for businesses that are just putting this financial pressure on their own mind to think longer term, and how that would show up in the actual competitive strategy of the business.
Yeah, I mean, so like
or the country or anything, or any organization that's doing it.
Absolutely. Oh. I think it's very normal for people who understand Bitcoin to then immediately start relating it to whatever their personal expertise is. Like I was mentioning before, I came from the world of sort of like total rewards, pensions, group retirement savings plans. So for me, immediately the first thing I started noodling on when I really got Bitcoin is like, oh man, like there's so many different ways to think about how this could exist in the employment relationship. What we were talking about earlier absolutely relates to this, because what are the things that really damage a business's productivity are, you know, turnover, absenteeism, people, you know, they have financial problems, so they can't do their job properly. And so businesses already today spend a ton of money trying to solve this problem in the same way. You know, all these fiat behaviors get innovated. These are just people trying to solve problems. And the solution just totally exists already. It's just helping people understand whatever they have that they're able to save, they should just put it in Bitcoin, and then they can really focus on their work. And that, you know, creative flow space we were talking about earlier, now that time that's spent at work is channeled into, you know, helping the business thrive. So we have customers that have been doing this with us for years now. And, you know, there's some where they, you know, encourage their employees to start participating and saving in Bitcoin with us. They didn't even know why they were doing it at the time. You know, Bitcoin has done a 7x over the last 2 years, and their 10,000 is 70,000 now. There's no other vehicle that could have changed their life like that. And this business, like these companies in that time, nobody's quitting ever. You know, like you're never going to lose an employee like that. So this is why I don't understand why like people, executives or business owners who understand Bitcoin aren't trying to think about doing this. Employees, you know, Bitcoiner employees, I think of it as like, it's a nice to have. It would be cool to earn Bitcoin, but I can just buy it on my own. But like let's just think a little bit bigger. Like we can power the entire world on this thing. And, you know, and it doesn't have to be the entire world. It can just be your business. And, you know, it could fundamentally change the outcome of everything you're trying to do.
Well, and doesn't it change the way a business operates or the mentality amongst the people working for a corporation or themselves where like, hey, I have this thing on the balance sheet or I'm saving in this thing that's appreciating at a fast enough rate. Now I don't have to go into the world and look for problems to solve so that I can survive.
Yeah.
I can now figure out what problem do I want to solve.
Yeah.
And that's a complete like inversion in the mentality there.
Yeah.
It's like what Saylor said, the road to serfdom is working exponentially harder for a currency growing exponentially weaker.
Yeah.
And it's not just the currency though, it's everything that people are saving in due to entropy and increase in supply.
Yeah. Yeah, imagine like General Electric said, okay, everyone, we've moved all our capital into Bitcoin. We're now only going to make products that last 100 years. And if you're not on board with that, you're fired. You know, and like we're going to bring in people who can think that way. And we're going to outcompete everyone by building products that are permanently better than anything else that's available. They're going to be more expensive. Well, we're going to get less churn, but we're pretty sure that people are going to want that stuff because it'll be the only fridge you ever need to buy.
Such a great HR filter too. Because then all the no coiners just quit. Like, yeah, just take the severance package and walk.
Yeah.
And then we're going to hire all these long-term thinking, highly technically proficient, diehard Bitcoiners.
Yeah.
It might be a difficult work culture to remain coherent because Bitcoiners tend to be so disagreeable.
Oh, our company's
But
insane.
if you could accomplish that, you'd have a badass organization.
Totally. Yeah.
How many
and
times
it's
would
like,
an employee be like, you know what? You can get fucked. I'm not doing that. I'm sitting on some Bitcoin. You can figure it out yourself.
but there's a
Watch your mouth.
prerequisite of critical thinking. Like you have to be willing to do some, you know, you need to have a limber brain to get that far. And so that's also a pretty nice, like, filtering mechanism for people you might want to have in the organization. But I think on the other side, like I have observed this throughout my career. And so I absolutely know this is true. That kind of like ambient anxiety people have about finance because most people really don't understand how this stuff works does translate into when they show up to the job. And it has a lot to do with when they decide to leave. And, you know, the products that we've innovated that don't include Bitcoin to help solve these problems have really like made it worse because we have effectively fused saving and gambling into products that, you know, try to accomplish this really difficult task of growing people's money at the rate it's melting.
Yeah.
Which is hard to do.
Which necessitates moving further out on the risk spectrum.
Yes.
And so it's risk reward. You almost can't do it. In a risk adjusted way, you can't do it.
Yes.
You might get lucky. You might not.
Yeah. Yeah. And so given the choice, if most people understood that they could just save their money
In money.
yeah, then they would do that.
Yes.
They would totally do that thing. And
I'm sorry, but it's not lost on me here that we keep coming back to this. It's just all about people not understanding what money is.
Exactly.
It's like, well, the problem is you're not saving your money in real money. If you would just save your money in real money, you wouldn't have to go do all these fucking risky things over here.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And so I think that it's natural that as people receive that understanding as a result of being exposed to it by somebody, there's a natural like gratitude. Like I'm immensely grateful to Jeff Booth forever for writing that book and let it happen to find me. And I've told him that. And, but this plays out to infinity, right? Until we've helped everybody figure out this thing. And so today we exist in this really cool space where, you know, two of the first 200 companies that do this are going to, you know, probably have a great run as long as they can manage it and they've built the right control mechanisms and stuff. And yeah, it's an exciting time to be alive.